Thank you for joining us, David Archer. You are the current chair of the Haida Gwaii Accessibility Committee. Can you tell us more about the committee and its plans to improve accessibility on Haida Gwaii?
Sure. Yeah, I'm happy to be on the show today. Thanks, Katie. So I have been the chair of the Haida Gwaii Accessibility Committee since about September 2023, and the committee was formed that fall by the NCRD. And the main work that we've done so far is to produce an accessibility plan for Haida Gwaii in collaboration with municipalities here as well and other community members. So there's a group of about 10 of us that worked on this. And so this is something that organizations all across BC are doing, all public organizations following the BC Accessibility Act. So it's really nice to see that kind of wave of activity happening everywhere and more kind of awareness about what accessibility is and what disability is as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And what sorts of things are in the plan so far? Because 2023 is not that long ago, and I know these things take time. But for Haida Gwaii specifically, what sorts of things are on the horizon? Is it like more ramps, or does it go farther?
Yeah, it is that, and it's much more as well. So there were 6 areas of priority in the action plan. So number 1 is employment. We have delivery of services. There's the built environment. There's information and communications. There's transportation, and there's procurement. So some of this has to do with the internal workings of government, but a lot of it does have to do with things like infrastructure and the way people get information and that sort of thing. So the built environment is definitely the biggest category here. And I think, as a remote community, that makes sense. Infrastructure is in some ways less developed than in other places. One of the, probably the biggest thing that I heard, because we took in input from the public as well during this process, and one of the biggest needs that I heard was that Haida Gwaii needs accessible washrooms everywhere on the island. So that's just one example. So, exploring ways that we can make that happen. But, when we think of, when I started this work in the committee, I also, did a little research on my own and have been learning along the way about, what disability is as well. And we're talking about many, many kinds of disability, like, physical disability where, a ramp would benefit someone is just one version of that. There's physical and mental disability, invisible and chronic illnesses, and neurodivergence as well. So we were trying to consider all types of disability, or as many as we could. And the reason that having a public plan is so important is that it resists the framing that disability is just about something that's wrong with an individual that needs to be corrected. It's a social model where you're trying to build a world where everyone can participate, that's, truer to the human condition, because so many people have disabilities. I can't remember the stats, but it's something like a quarter of Canadians will have a disability. And so it's just, there's an enormous need for society-wide change, and that's why it's good to work as a group like this.
And I remember talking to you once, and I think it was you that said, it's not a matter of if you have a disability, it's when you may become disabled at some point in your life. Everybody will, if you're fortunate enough to get older or whatever. It's something that everybody should consider as part of their own experience, whether current or future.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, one book that I read recently that was inspiring is called Against Techno-Ableism, Rethinking Who Needs Improvement by Ashley Shue. And in her book, she says disability is the future. And that's true in many different ways, I think. You could look at it individually, like disability might be a part of your future. But, it's also, I think people with disabilities are sometimes canaries in the coal mine as far as pointing out ways that society can be better for everyone. And I think a really obvious example of that that's everywhere now is closed captions. And we've had closed captions on TV for a long, long time. But, since the age of TikTok and Instagram, closed captions are everywhere. They make life easier for people who can't hear, and they make life easier for everyone else too who doesn't want to watch a video loud on the bus. So it's just like a simple example, but making the world more accessible makes it better for everyone.
The more you see it, the more normal it is, and the less often anyone would even question why it's there, because awareness is growing. I think we kind of touched on it a bit, but I would like to know from your perspective and your experience in your own life living on Haida Gwaii, what are some of the more unique challenges that people in rural communities with disabilities are facing versus the city? I think we have some unique challenges here as well, and I'd just like to know what you have heard from folks or what you think they are.
Well, I would say one that I'd point out is to do with transportation. So it's less common in rural communities to have a bus system or a shuttle that can help people get around. I think that's something that's really basic that you might take for granted in a big city, even though, Vancouver's public transit isn't perfect, but you can get on there with a ramp, and it is available throughout the city. So I think that's a really big one.
That's huge. Haida Gwaii is severely lacking in that department.
Yeah.
And there's reasons for that. It's hard. I mean, it's not just like people don't care. It's not necessarily financially viable, and that's part of the challenge, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. And at a certain point though, financial viability is just part of the conversation, right? It depends on what kind of world we want to build and what we're willing to do to get there. I'm sure that there are creative solutions. I mean, there is one little local shuttle happening now, the medical trip that goes up and down the island, which is only a few years old, I think. So that's progress, at least.
Well, even something like that is a huge win for a small community.
Yeah, it makes a huge difference. Yeah.
And what about so there are these ideas and plans coming together, but who supports the plans? Like, speaking of financial viability, are there grants coming through? Is this government? Who's behind you?
Yeah, the North Coast Regional District is, and so they've listed different roles for themselves in each of the items on the plan, and that ranges from advocating to leaders in the BC government or elsewhere, or exploring different actions they can take as an organization to make their own organization more accessible, or trying to find funding is part of that as well. I think this is an area that I would like to get more into in the near future, is putting some of these whether it's infrastructure or something else, getting some projects going. And I think that's going to be a combination of funding from the district and probably grants as well. I think it'll be a few different sources.
Right. And then forgive me, because I was just kind of wondering, the North Coast Regional District is basically just a collection of municipalities sort of coming together in one body, or?
Yeah, I don't know if I'm the best person to describe that either, but I think it's a region of BC that includes Haida Gwaii, and I don't know how far east it goes, but it includes Prince Rupert as well. And there are different jurisdictions depending on whether you are a municipality or not. I actually don't know how they're all related to each other, but yeah, it's just kind of like the wider region.
NCRD, they have an acronym. They sound official.
Yeah.
There's
Yeah, well,
something.
they are the government for they're the local government for anyone that doesn't have a municipality, for sure.
Okay, got it.
And then they're working with all the municipalities to make things like this happen.
Okay, thanks. And then before I let you go, what are some success stories you've heard so far in your work? What changes have you seen already?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I want to share two examples. So one is being built right now, and that's the new sidewalks happening in Dajinggids. So that's down on Wharf Street, where we're going to have a change to one-way traffic down there. It'll be an adjustment for people, but that project does include a sidewalk with ramps and I forget what those are called, but like the swoopy curves
Oh yeah, like
that
the
make it
dips.
easy for people to get on the sidewalk and off the sidewalk. So, my friend in a wheelchair can actually use that area. And also, it's just better for public safety, honestly, to separate people walking from traffic. I think that's part of accessibility as well. And I often think about that, like along the road that goes between the baseball diamond and downtown. There's just kind of that wide shoulder, but having a separated walkway, I think, is very valuable. So I think that's a win. I would also say that there are a lot of businesses that I've noticed making little efforts in their facades or front areas to include people.
Mm-hmm.
There are ramps at a few of the businesses downtown, and places to sit. Even I'm thinking of the one by the Blacktail Coffee. Places to sit, I think, are another thing that we can investigate. But yeah, there's lots of little positive things happening. And if I can go zoom out a little bit, there's one other project called the Hidden Disabilities Sunflower, and that's an international program that I became familiar with through traveling. And basically, it allows you to self-identify as somebody with an invisible illness or hidden disability that might need a little more time, say, as you're walking through the airport and trying to navigate security and baggage and all that stuff. So the last time I was at YVR, I grabbed one of these sunflower lanyards, and you can just get them for free, no questions asked, at the info desk at YVR. And then the airport staff are trained to know that this is a signal that you might need some more help, or you might not, but just to kind of pay attention. There are I think 280 or more airports participating in this now, and a bunch of airlines, including Air Canada. So I've done this twice now and have gotten a little bit of attention each time, once from Air Canada and once from a YVR staff member. And yeah, I think it's a fantastic program because it's exhausting to have to explain to people what your needs are. So just to have a symbol that does it is very helpful.
Yeah, I learned about that from you. You made a post about it, and I feel the
Yeah.
same way. I think it's amazing to have a signal or a symbol that isn't so look at me, or this poor soul over here. There's nothing shameful in the symbol of a sunflower, it's kind of just sweet
Yeah.
and normal.
Yeah, it's just kind of it's free of stigma, hopefully, right?
Yeah,
It's
totally.
yeah, it's subtle enough, but it's also obvious enough to be useful.
I was thinking while you were talking about the improvement of the sidewalks in Dodging Geeds here, and if anybody listening lives on Haida, they know how contentious this project has been for some reason. And I just wonder what you think about the resistance to that, and if you think there's been a public enough conversation about the accessibility features of this new plan, because I think people aren't really thinking of it that way, and we're getting a lot of Facebook comments saying, how dare they change my street to a one-way, whatever, right?
Yeah. Well, I think a few things are happening here. One is that, I was looking at some of the documents surrounding this lately, and I think the public consultation for this was in 2019. So it's been a long time since there was a real like open conversation about doing it in the first place. And I know there's been other statements by council and stuff and by the village office. So, it's been a while. I think people are also, afraid to lose what they've had sometimes. And are just unsure how it's going to turn out and how it's going to feel down there, which is fair. But I don't think that there's very much awareness of the accessibility benefits that it brings. I haven't spent a lot of time looking at what people are saying about it on Facebook, but I have heard a little bit, and I think people just need to be patient with it and think about those that this will benefit the most.
Yeah, you're probably not as chronically online as I am. Sometimes I'll just...
I am. I'm just in different places.
Yeah, I don't even know if Facebook counts as online anymore. It is kind of a place we go.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, I have been thinking about that plan and wondering if there could be just a little more public conversation about how this will improve life for people with disabilities and people without disabilities, in my opinion, so far.
Totally. Yeah. Just like we're excited about this change. It's going to bring benefits. What are those benefits? Yeah.
I think it will. I think people will see in time. And even the walking tour, so you were saying the stretch between Wharf Street and the baseball field. It's kind of interesting there because I think about it a lot as well, because it has these little walking figures painted on the ground to show people that you can walk there and that you're encouraged to. It's actually part of a designated walking tour that they made like for tourists, I think, or for anybody. But that little stretch, it's like you do have to be on the highway on a like really close to cars going by. There's no separation of sidewalk there, so you can walk down there, but you couldn't really wheel down there. You couldn't walk. I don't know. It's just an interesting like little missing chunk of the tour.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's also like you're between traffic and then a cliff on the other side.
A cliff,
going down to the ocean.
Literally a cliff, yeah.
Yeah, it's a tricky one.
Yeah.
I think we can do better there, but maybe that's next after this project.
All in due time. I think a lot is already happening, and you're a person who's really been helping shift these conversations. Like, even just in our few conversations we've had about accessibility, I've really appreciated you and your perspective. So I appreciate you joining and taking this call today, and it's been really nice.
Yeah, this was fun. Thanks, Katie.